The Blue Jays going toe-to-toe with the Chicago White Sox. Where were the records at the start of the series? Where are the records at the end of the series? My name is Scott McGregor. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another great episode of Blue Jays Game Recap. And it starts right now.
The Blue Jays are back, and right now, with the game having gone final, we are welcoming you in to Blue Jays Game Recap on the Sports for Beginners podcast. Now, let's go to your hosts of Blue Jays Game Recap, Thomas McGregor, Ali Musa, and Scott McGregor in the Sports for Beginners podcast studio. Take it away, gentlemen, because when the umpire says, "You're out," or "That's the game," or "Let's play ball," we know it's time for some baseball. This is Blue Jays Game Recap. Take it away, gentlemen.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Blue Jays Game Recap here on the Sports for Beginners podcast. I am Scott McGregor, your host of the program. It is the second half of a double trouble on Sports for Beginners. We will be talking about the Diamondbacks and the Blue Jays with our good friend Thomas McGregor in a matter of moments when we are able to do that. Maybe we will do that after this show, but this is our White Sox program. So let's talk about things we would talk about on this show. Before I forget, you can follow everything on Sports for Beginners on X, as they call it now. I still call it Twitter, and I will continue to call it Twitter, at Scott McGregor 3. You can follow Thomas at Thomas J on X, or as I still call it, Twitter. You can follow me on Instagram at SMC_87_. You can follow the podcast on Facebook. Link will be provided in the description of the episode, same for the Discord server. You can follow the Toronto Blue Jays on their social platforms just by searching at Blue Jays on X, or as I call it, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. All right. You can also subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and catch both Weekly and In Sports and Sports for Beginners on the Weekly In Sports YouTube channel, Weekly In Sports with Scott. Alright, enough gab. Let's get down to business, shall we? I think we shall. Alright. So, this series with the White Sox began following a 2 out of 3 series win for the Blue Jays against the Diamondbacks. Yes. 2 out of 3 series win for the Blue Jays over the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks lost 8-1 on Wednesday night. They also lost 5-4 on Tuesday night, but defeated Toronto 9-5 on Thursday afternoon. That was the series that went from the 17th to the 19th, at which time the Blue Jays record at the start of the White Sox series would be 40, 40, and 34. It is not the current record as we speak. The White Sox record, meanwhile, would start out as 23 and 52 heading into Game 1. The White Sox do take 2 out of 3 against the Blue Jays, but Game 2 had the same final score as Game 1. We'll get to who's starting in those games in just a few minutes, but before we get there, we always like to talk about this on a traditional Blue Jays game recap, and we will do that as well on the episode edition of Blue Jays game recap, episode 17 of season 4. We like to talk about the managers in what we call on Sports for Beginners the leadoff. And our managers of conversation are John Schneider for the Blue Jays and Will Venable. All right, we have a little bit of time here on the opening portion, so we are going to move right in. We are going to move right on in to the starters in this one. And in this series, the first two starters, we saw Grant Taylor go against Spencer Turnbull in the opening matchup between the White Sox and the Blue Jays. Grant Taylor going toe-to-toe with the Blue Jays in game number 1. He went for the White Sox against Spencer Turnbull. Now, he did not receive the win because he was only able to go 1 inning. He would be taken out in the 2nd inning as he did not go any further than that. More on that in the pitching line later on. Next up, you had for the Blue Jays, José Berríos going for the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays would be countered. Oops, I didn't want that to happen there. The Blue Jays would be countered. They would be countered by Aaron Savali. If I pronounced that name wrong, Aaron, I apologize in case I did. But anyways, he would get the start in game number 2 against José Berríos. The records for both pitchers of those games going in. Aaron Savali was 1-3. His record moved from 1-3 to 1-4. José Berríos ties his win and loss record with the win on Saturday afternoon at 3-3. His record was 3-2 going in, and he absolutely shoved in this one. On to game number 3. Game number 3, the starters in a 4-2 win for the White Sox, which gave them the series. The Blue Jays go with Chris Bassitt. Meanwhile, the White Sox go to Adrian Houser against Chris Bassitt in the finale of this series. Both pitchers who started in game number 3 would not wind up with the win, as their records going in stay where they are going into their next start. Alright, the mound visit, the meeting with the managers, as I will call it, out of the way. Let's start with Sunday's line score and move all the way back to Friday. We'll add the team comparison when we start going into key moments in the series, which include when the game got points. And we'll pick this one up, by the way, in the 4th inning when we get to that in a moment or two. For the White Sox, 4 runs on 6 hits, 1 error. For the Blue Jays, 2 runs on 8 hits, 1 error. The Blue Jays also had no home runs, same as the White Sox in this one. The White Sox had 7 total bases. They left 6 men on base, did not steal a base. 11 total bases for the Blue Jays in game number 3, which was on Sunday. No stolen bases. They left 9 men on base on Sunday. Off we go to game 2 and the line score. We'll get to game 1 after we take a quick break, but before we do, let's at least get through game 2 and game 3, which we just did. We just did game 3. Let's go to game 2. We'll get to game 1 when we come back, because that will kickstart us into our scoring. So with that said, let's get right down into it. For the Blue Jays, 7 runs on 12 hits, 1 error. For the White Sox, 1 run on 2 hits, 1 error. The White Sox left 4 men on base. They also totaled 4 men on base. No home runs for the White Sox in game 2. No stolen bases either. Same thing for the Blue Jays. No stolen bases in this one. 19 total bases for the Blue Jays in this one. 2 home runs on the 12 hits. They left 6 men on base. Alright, when we return to Blue Jays game recap on Sports for Beginners, the fun part, key moments and scoring from game 1 to game 3. Plus, we'll revisit the line score of Game 1 to get us started. Players of the series will include the top performers and the player of the game for each game. And then we will be setting things up for Guardians, Blue Jays, and of course, for the White Sox side of things, whoever they are playing next. As of this very moment, the Diamondbacks, who we will get to in the Diamondback recap, they will be playing a team in June following the Blue Jays, which is the Arizona Diamondbacks. Games get started tonight. So by the time you hear this, the Diamondback series will have gotten underway. Well, you know how the Blue Jays did a Barbie game day? Guess what? That's what today is about for the Diamondbacks and the White Sox. Who did the Diamondbacks play before the White Sox? Find out on the Diamondback recap, and I encourage you to check that one out before you check out this one. But it's up to you if you want to check it out. If you want to check this one out first before you check out the Diamondback show, it doesn't matter to me. With that being said, we will take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Game 1 line score, Game 1 scoring, followed by Game 2 scoring, and then we will see where we can get to, if we can get to Game number 3, and of course, if we can get on into, we will see if we can get on into Game number 3. Blue Jays game recap continues momentarily. Stay with us.
I wonder if I could make it. It's almost getting to 8 o'clock p.m., and I am still a few more steps away from home to get to my computer to listen to CNT Radio's Cosmopolitan Culture Club. The best of the best music from around the world. Can't wait. I think I made it. CNT Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time.
Hey everyone, it's your host Scott McGregor of Sports for Beginners, the podcast. Wanting to remind you to join us for another special holiday double trouble on Sports for Beginners as the New York Yankees come north of the border to take on the Toronto Blue Jays. Join us for a special Sports for Beginners Season 4 episode / a original Blue Jays game recap. That's right, we got the Yankees and the Blue Jays series recap on Sports for Beginners, part of Season 4. Plus, the Los Angeles Angels will be in town. Join me and perhaps Thomas, who may join me in studio, for double the Blue Jays game recap. One, part of Season 4 of Sports for Beginners. The other, traditional Blue Jays game recap. Both following the Canada Day Extravaganza 4-game series between the New York Yankees and the Toronto Blue Jays, and of course, the 3-game series weekend between the Los Angeles Angels and the Toronto Blue Jays. Happy Canada Day to all listening to this recording at this time. We'll see you after Canada Day for some Double Trouble Canada Day the following day after Canada Day and after the homestand. Until then, lights up, let's go. Looking for a good hockey podcast that covers your favorite hockey teams and mine? Check out On the Ice and Behind the Benches, where we chat about our favorite hockey teams from puck drop to the last play of the action. To learn more, follow the On the Ice and Behind the Benches Facebook page. Search On the Ice and Behind the Benches.
take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo. Two powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Blue Jays Game Recap. My name is Scott McGregor, your host of the program. Already 2 line scores. We visited with the managers. We've also now visited with the starters on the mound, the starting pitchers on the mound. We did that in the leadoff of Blue Jays Game Recap. And a reminder, in case you missed it earlier, you can check out all the specifics and all of the great stuff, the 24/7 Blue Jays content for Blue Jay fans on the Blue Jays social media platforms on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, or rather X, and Facebook. And subscribe to the Blue Jays YouTube channel for the exclusive content you won't see anywhere else. You can log on to bluejays.com and find the socials there, or let's say you're on your Instagram app at this time. All you need to do is type in @BlueJays, and there you go. There's your content that you would not want to miss. All right, so the White Sox take 2 out of 3 over the Blue Jays. How did it happen? We're going to discuss that in a moment. But first, coming back to the line score, we went over game 1, game 2, and game 3. The line scores there. We also went over the pitching matchups for all games, game 1, 2, and 3. We did not quite yet go over the team comparison and line score for game 1, but this ended the same way game 2 did. The difference here, the Blue Jays had 7 runs in game 2. In game 1, they only had 1 run, and here is the line score. For the Blue Jays in game 1, 1 run on 7 hits, 8 total bases, 6 men left on, no errors, no stolen bases, and no home runs. For the White Sox, 7 runs on 9 hits, 2 home runs, 20 total bases, no stolen bases, no errors, and they left 7 men on base. So how did the Blue Jays flip the script in game 2 of this series and end the same score as game number 1? Let's take a look at game 1 first. Players of the game and top performers coming up during the players of the series. That's coming up when we conclude the scoring portion of the game. I wanted to say key moments, but we're going to go with scoring. I did say key moments before, but you know what? We're going to go with the scoring for each game, especially since game 1 and game 2 ended in the same score, just the other way around. The Blue Jays won game 2, 7-1. The White Sox win game 1, 7-1. Here's how it began. Andrew Benintendi homers to kick things off, a solo shot off the bat of Andrew Benintendi to give the White Sox the lead early, his 8th home run of the season. For White Sox after 1 inning of play. Second inning of play, White Sox, Austin Slater, and Andrew Benintendi both go back-to-back with singles to score Lenny Sosa. And then Austin Slater would also score on the single. It was a big ground ball single for Andrew Benintendi to right fielder Addison Barger. Josh Rojas, however, would be deemed out at the plate on the throw by Addison Barger. Chase Meldroff to second base on the play, but that would be the 3rd out of the inning. So the White Sox add on 2 more in the top of the 2nd inning. It's 3-0. I was going to say 2-0, but no, it's 3-0 after the top of the 2nd inning. Top of the 3rd, we go, and the home runs continue. This is the 2nd home run of the ball game for the White Sox, but the White Sox only scored 2 home runs in this ball game. One was a solo shot, the other was a 2-run shot, which brought that lead of the White Sox from a 3 to a 5. The Blue Jays are down by 5. Luis Robert Jr. hits his 7th home run of the season. This scores Miguel Vargas, and that makes it 5-0 White Sox. White Sox ahead, big. They score a touchdown and add the extra point later in the top of the third with a Josh Rojas double, his 5th of the season. Addison Barger on the fielding point here. He was where it went. The ball went into right field. Lenny Sosa and Austin Slater score on the play. 7-0 White Sox. Blue Jays would not go down without a fight, but even though they get one back, they fall 7-1. How did they get that one run? A Bo Bichette single, which scored Tyler Heineman in the bottom of the 8th inning. The Blue Jays were down by 7. They unfortunately could not get hot late in the 8th inning of game 1 to get all 7 runs back, but they get one back, so they lost by a run. Nope, that doesn't check out. I mean, they lost by 6 runs. So they avoid the shutout, but they fall 7-1 in the process. All right, that's game 1. Let's go to game 2. This time, the Blue Jays get things started. We picked this one up in the bottom of the 1st, where Bo Bichette, well, he got the game's only run on a Tyler Heineman score from the single off the bat of Bo Bichette in the bottom of the 8th inning on Tuesday. Bottom 1st inning, Wednesday night's game. Bo takes the first pitch to deep center field, and the Blue Jays go out in front 1-0. For their first lead of the series, and they would stay in the lead for a while. Bottom 2nd we go. 3-run score here. First, Ernie Clement picking up a single. 3 runs scored in the 2nd inning of play. First, Ernie singles on a line drive into right field. Austin Slater was the right fielder at this time. George Springer scores on the play. Ernie advances to 3rd on a throwing error by Austin Slater. Blue Jays going up by 2 in the bottom of the 2nd inning. In the later half of the bottom of the 2nd inning, the Blue Jays go up 4-0, but after another 1-run single, this one from Davis Schneider, scores Ernie Clement. What was the play that made this? Oh, I was underscoring. I wasn't underscoring. I was under key moments. Oops. It was another single that made it 4-0. That was by Nathan Lukes. Oops. My bad. I was on key moments. I wasn't on scoring. My bad. Anyways, another single. This one by Nathan Lukes scores Davis Schneider. Miles Straw to second base on the play. 4-0 Toronto after 2 innings of play. Picking this game up in the 6th inning now, in the top of the 6th, and it's a fielder's choice by first baseman Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He would be charged with the error as Andrew Benintendi reaches on a fielder's choice. Miguel Vargas scored on the play, and honestly, I don't think that's close. I think that would have counted as a run regardless. But I believe, if I remember correctly, and I think I do, I think the umpires came together trying to figure out, would the run count and would also we get an out? Well, we didn't necessarily get an out, but the run would score on the play. Go to the bottom of the 7th we go, and it's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. with the 2nd home run of the game for the Blue Jays, his 10th of the season. Fly ball left center field, dead left center. 10th home run of the year for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And it's now 5-1. So the difference here between game 1 and game 2, the Blue Jays didn't score a run till the bottom of the 8th inning in game 1. Meanwhile, top of the 6th inning in game 2, and the White Sox get on the board when it's already 4-1. When it's already 4-0. So I guess you could say the White Sox might have had the better game, even though they lost game 2. They didn't wait till the bottom of the 8th. Regardless, it's now 5-1 in the bottom of the 7th. Speaking of the bottom half of an inning, bottom of the 8th, this is where the only run the Blue Jays scored in game 1 would count. In this inning, in game 2, 2 runs count, and those were the game-winning runs. Davis Schneider, first double of the year, drives in George Springer and Ernie Clement. Makes it 7-1. which would end up being the final score of Game 2. Now, the White Sox do make the Blue Jays sweat for the game ender in the third game. We'll get to Game 3 and then move right on into the pitching right after a quick word from our good friends over at On the Ice and Behind the Benches and Broadcast Map. So stay tuned. Pitching line plus players of the series coming up next. Followed right after we recap how Sunday's 4-2 White Sox win over the Blue Jays came to be, the recap from Sunday's game on 22nd, 2025, when we return, followed by pitching line from Game 1 of the White Sox series and players of the series. All of that coming up next when we return.
Hey, sports fans, your host of On the Ice and Behind the Benches, the program, Thomas McGregor here. As you know, this is the Stanley Cup playoffs as they are finally in full swing for the Stanley Cup Finals. We've got the Edmonton Oilers taking on the Florida Panthers. Headed your way. There is some content that is coming before that, but please, if you are like someone that likes to stay in as locked on Podcast Network calls it, as an everydayer who never misses an episode, do join us for Stanley Cup Playoffs Finals review with the Stanley Cup Finals teammates chosen. It's going to be lots of fun. That's it for me. Tune in to Blue Jays game recap now on Sports for Beginners. I'll see you on the flip side.
Looking for conversations on the world of broadcasting, sports media, and from time to time, my favorite sports teams? Listen to Broadcast Map with me, Ali Musa. To learn more about the show and to view the upcoming schedule, like the Broadcast Map Facebook page. Search Broadcast Map.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Blue Jays game recap. Blue Jays and the White Sox. Blue Jays of Toronto and the Chicago White Sox. 2 games scoring, all games line score, managers, and all games starting pitching in the books. Let's get to game number 3 scoring before we can get to the pitching line, which I mentioned is going to be from game number 1, the 7-1 Blue Jays loss to the Chicago White Sox. That was game 1 on Tuesday night, Looney Dogs night at the ballpark. A quick programming note on that, or promotional note on that. Next time the Blue Jays will be doing Looney Dogs night will be following the All-Star game when the New York Yankees are in town. And no, that does mean that they're actually, and I should say no, that does not mean that the Yankees are the only Looney Dogs night coming up for the Blue Jays, but with the exception of the Canadian holiday, Looney Dogs night will be taken over by Canada Day festivities on July the 1st, which is this coming Tuesday coming up. In a Tuesday from this Tuesday is June the 24th, 2025. So a Tuesday from June 24th, 2025, we will be having a Canada Day celebration at Rogers Center, but we'll get to more on that a little bit later. Let's get back to business, shall we? I think we shall. Picking this game up, which is game number 3, when the records for Chicago and Toronto were 53 and 41 and 35. The records now, as they sit after the game was done, 25 and 50 and 53 and 41 and 36. They were 24 and 53 and 44 and 41, I should say, and 35 after Game 2. After Game 3, the records were where they stand right now at 41-36 and 25-53. But how did it get to that point? Well, it began with a force out. Luis Robert Jr. grounded into a force out to get things started in the top of the fourth, not the bottom, the top of the fourth. Addison Barger throwing to Andres Jimenez. Chase Medroff scores on the play. Miguel Vargas to third. Kyle Thiel out at second. Luis Robert Jr. to first base. He would get on, but Miguel Vargas would be out at second. I should say he would get to third. Kyle Thiel getting out at second base. Go to the bottom of the fourth, and very quickly the Blue Jays answer. Bottom of the fifth, I should say, not bottom of the fourth, but very quickly the Blue Jays answer. Unlike Game 1 where they didn't answer till the bottom of the eighth. We'll get to that in a second because we actually go to the top of the eighth in this one. But anyways, bottom of the fifth, here we go. Bo Bichette in the clutch with a single on a ground ball to center field. Miles Straw scores on the play. Alan Roden to second base on the play. Blue Jays have tied it up. It's 1-1. White Sox won. Blue Jays won. In the bottom of the seventh inning, the Blue Jays, once again, have Bo at the bat. Ground ball in the center field. Alan Roden scores again. So Bo and Alan Roden, well, actually, no. Miles scored on the first Bo Bichette single that was in the bottom of the fifth. This time, Alan Roden connects with Bo and scores to give Toronto a lead, 2-1 Toronto in the bottom of the seventh. But in the top of the eighth, Jeff Hoffman coming in to close the game with 2 outs, and here's when the trouble began. Andrew Benintendi reaches on a fielding error by the pitcher, Jeff Hoffman. Austin Slater scores. Michael A. Taylor to third. Chase Medroff to second base. This ties the game at 2. Next up, Miguel Vargas. A 3-run double wins the game. His 20th double of the season. Of course, the game would go to the 9th inning, but Miguel Vargas, his 20th double of the season, is enough to win the game. Chase Medroff, Michael A. Taylor, and Andrew Benintendi, he goes to third. Chase Medroff and Michael A. Taylor both score on the play. That's actually a 2-run double, I should say, as we would go runners at third and second in the top of the eighth. But the Blue Jays able to get out of that trouble eventually. But it was Miguel's 20th double of the season that scored the final 2 runs Chicago would need to win 4-2. All right, let's talk about the players of the series. And we're going to start by going over our top performers and player of the game. Let's start in game number 3. Miguel Vargas was named the player of the game, went 2 for 4 with a double, 2 RBIs. He also was one of the top performers. The next top performer would be Adrian Houser and Toronto Blue Jays starting pitcher Chris Bassitt, who shoved 7 strikeouts, allowed 1 earned run, and 3 hits in 6 innings of work. In 6 1/3, Adrian Houser went for 4 strikeouts, 2 earned runs, and 7 hits given up. In game number 2, our player of the game, this was the Blue Jays win. That went to Blue Jays pitcher José Berríos, 7 2/3. He fanned 5 White Sox players in this one, walked 3 White Sox, gave up no runs, only 2 hits given up by José Berríos. Miguel Vargas getting on the top performers as well. 1 for 3 in the game with a triple, hit by pitch, and a run scored. A double, a walk, 3 RBIs, and a run scored for Davis Schneider, who also ends up as a top performer. Davis went 2 for 3 on Wednesday. I should say Saturday, not Wednesday, Saturday. Sunday was the 4-2 win for the White Sox. Saturday was the 7-1 win for the Blue Jays. Friday, the Blue Jays pick up a 7-1 loss, and here were the top performers and player of the game. The player of the game also was a top performer, Austin Slater, 2 for 2. a double, 2 walks, an RBI, and 2 runs scored. Alexander, one of the pitchers for the White Sox, also getting in the fun here. Tyler Alexander getting in on the fun here. Went 4 innings, gave up 4 hits, no earned runs, fanned 2 Blue Jays. And Andrew Benintendi, a home run, 2 RBIs, and a run scored. He went 2 for 5. And there you have it. Now, we speak about Game 1. Let's take a look at our pitching line from Game 1. We talk about Game 1. Let's take a look at the pitching line from Game 1. This is where we go into the pitching line. I'll get to the players of the series in just a moment, but let's go pitching line as we start it with the top performers and the player of the game. Here we go. Grant Taylor getting things started for the White Sox went an inning. Was not able to pick up the win because of that. But he did fan 1 Blue Jay. Finishes the game with an ERA of 3.60. Spencer Turnbull went 2 innings, gave up 5 hits, 4 earned runs, 1 home run, walked 2 White Sox, and struck 2 out. His ERA was 7.11. Next to pitch would be Tyler Alexander for the White Sox. Meanwhile, Mason Fluharte would pitch in the Blue Jays area. He would pitch the 3rd inning. Tyler Alexander went 4 innings, pitching both the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th inning of the game. He gave up 4 hits, fanned 2 Blue Jays. No homers, no walks, no earned runs given up, but about 4 hits were given up. His ERA 5.25. Mason Fluharte, on the other hand, for Toronto, in 1 inning of work, 2 hits allowed, 3 earned runs allowed, a home run as part of that allowed. He fanned 3 White Sox and walked 2 of them. His ERA 4.55. Braden Fisher, the next to pitch for the Blue Jays, went 2 innings, struck out 4 White Sox in the process, an ERA of 2.37. Nick Sandlin into the game after that. We'll get to that in a second, but let's go back over to the White Sox. As the next to pitch would be this man, Dan Altavilla. Dan Altavilla was the next man to pitch. If I pronounced the name wrong, my apologize. 1 inning of work, 1 hit allowed, an ERA of 0.87. Not much allowed after that. Next up would be Gonzalez to pitch for the White Sox. Wikelman Gonzalez out there to pitch now for the White Sox. He would go 2 innings. Finish the game with an ERA of 4.50. Allow 1 hit, 1 earned run. Walked 2 Blue Jays. Struck out 2 Blue Jays as well. Did not give up a home run. Next up, to finish off the White Sox would be, the White Sox pitching line would be Tyler Gilbert. 1 inning of work, 1 strikeout, 1 hit allowed, an ERA of 3.63. Nick Sandlin on the Blue Jays was the next to pitch after Braden Fisher. An inning of work, 1 hit allowed, 1 strikeout given, an ERA of 2 coming out of the game for Nick Sandlin. Chad Green's ERA was 4.31 coming out of the game. 4.31 coming out of the game. He gave up 1 hit in 1 inning of work. Make way for Brandon Little. He struck out 2 White Sox in the game, walked 1 of them, finishes the game with an ERA of 2.14. 5.34 Jeff Hoffman in his 1 inning of work in game number 1. He fans only 1 White Sox, but the rest gets done, even though the Blue Jays would have to go into the 9th inning and try to win it after getting at least 1 run in that ball game in the bottom of the 8th. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick timeout. When we come back, we'll get to players of the series that I will give out myself. And then it's time to set the stage for Diamondbacks, White Sox, and Guardians, Blue Jays, as well as who else they will be playing. We'll also take a look at the current record and a reminder on the 17th episode of Season 4 of Sports for Beginners. We will be talking about the records leading up to when the Blue Jays would take on the White Sox and some of the key moments that we thought were good in this one, or in that series, I should say. But don't go anywhere, because right after a 30-second timeout, make it a minute 30-second timeout, we will be jumping into players of the series and setting up Guardians versus Jays and Diamondbacks versus White Sox. Blue Jays game recap continues in a moment, right after a quick word from Sienna T Radio and our station. Sienna T Radio is always making your day brighter, one song at a time.
What a busy traffic on this Friday evening. I am almost stuck in this traffic for the last 40 minutes. And there is no way, I think, for me to get to the show. The Sienna T Radio Song Bank, which is going to start very shortly. It's one of my favorite shows. And my, what a way to wind down for the weekend. Perfect 2 hours of fun-filled music. And she has so many great features. Sound of Music, Undercover, Foreign Exchange. Name that tune. And the big wheel that she spins. For Who's That? Or Where Are We? We cannot forget about the international stage. I have never come across such a great show in my life. I think I will have to press hard on my accelerator and go as fast as I can to get home in time. Wow! Wow! Look! I made it! I am almost there! Sienna T. Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time.
Looking for a sports podcast that covers sports weekly as well as gets you set up for the day? Check out Weekly in Sports with me, Scott McGregor. We give some shout-outs of the week to podcasts like this one and those who do them. Discuss the Blue Jays, Bills, Raptors, and more. To learn more, check out the Sports for Beginners Facebook page. Search Sports for Beginners.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Blue Jays game recap. Blue Jays and the White Sox. Thomas will be joining us for our Diamondback show on episode 17 of Sports for Beginners, the podcast. This is the second portion of the Double Trouble, which is following the episode. Link to the episode will be provided in the description of this episode as well. It actually will I'll say it will replace the link in the description to check out Sienna T Radio, the radio station of which you can find the Melting Pot, the Hourglass, the Cosmopolitan Culture Club, and the Song Bank. Oh, and don't forget the Classical Cafe. On this Blue Jays game recap show, we're back with you for about another 5-10 minutes or so. But it is now time to talk players of the series, and it is also time to set the stage for, yep, you know what I'm talking about. It is time to set the stage for Guardians, Blue Jays, and White Sox Diamondbacks. We'll set the stage in just a few moments. But first, I want to alert you with a little bit of some transaction news over the course of the timeline. The Blue Jays have recently, as of June the 20th, they did the following. They activated Nathan Lukes from the 7-day injured list, activated Nick Sandlin from the 15-day injured list. They also optioned left-handed pitcher Justin B. to the Buffalo Bisons, along with Will Robertson, I should say. On June 18th, they sent Nathan Lukes on a rehab assignment to the Buffalo Bisons. They also signed free agent outfielder Fabian Gonzalez to a minor league contract, and they signed free agent Griff Hughes to a minor league contract. They also put right-handed pitcher Ryan Burr on a rehab assignment in Dunedin with the Dunedin Blue Jays. Transactions on the White Sox side before we get down to business, including some that took place during this series. On June the 20th, the White Sox made the following transactions. They recalled right-handed pitcher Wilkman Gonzalez from the Charlotte Knights, as well as optioning right-handed pitcher Owen White to the Charlotte Knights. They selected the contract of left-handed pitcher Jake P. from the Birmingham Barons and placed left-handed pitcher Cam Boser on the 15-day injured list, along with Davis Martin, who was originally set to battle it out against Spencer Turnbull in the first game of this series. He was sent on the 15-day injured list on the day of the start of this series, which was Friday. Caleb Freeman was also designated for assignment. He is a right-handed pitcher, and they have optioned Jake P. to the Charlotte Knights as of Sunday, June 22nd, 2025. Paternity leave Adrian Hauser was activated to be eligible for this ball game on the Sunday. That's why he pitched in this game. He was activated from the paternity leave list on June 22nd as well. All right, so with that said, quickly, let's get to this. All right, I'm going to start with the White Sox, and I really like what I saw from Tyler Alexander right from the get-go. I mean, the dude was dealing quite a bit. He was dealing quite a bit of good pitching from this game. Was he great? No, but he did what he had to do to get the job done. And I also got to go with a second player of the series, and I'm going to go to Andrew Benintendi. 2 for 5 in game 1. I think he played in game number 2 as well. What was his record there? Okay, yeah, he was 0 for 4 in the loss on Saturday, but he also played a big role in game number 3, but went 0 for 4 in that game as well. He was 2 for 5 in game 1. Honestly, I really like that. My Blue Jay players of the series include Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. These guys coming from, the reason I picked Bo and Vladdy is because of their performances from game number 2. I really like what I saw, and I really like the opening bomb by Bo Bichette. Really nice way for him to get the game started. And then Ernie Clement, my boy Ernie. Shout out to also Melanie Roberts, a good friend of mine, and a good friend of another good friend of mine, but I'll leave it at that. Ernie is her and my boy, and when I say that, I don't mean as if we were mother and father. Our last names are not Clement. Her last name is Roberts, my last name is McGregor. Just make sure we know that. Anyways, he looked good. Davis also looked good in game 2. He looked good. Game 3, things looked like they were spiraling a little bit, especially in the 8th inning. Jeff Hoffman didn't have his best stuff, but he looked pretty good early on. And then the error and everything else that went down, that really shook things up in game 3. So Bo and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. are the players of the series for Toronto. Andrew Benintendi and Tyler Alexander, your players of the series for the Chicago White Sox. All right, why don't we turn the page? We are going to turn back the clock to the Diamondbacks a little bit later, but why don't we turn the page to the current records and the current upcoming matchups. So, the Chicago White Sox will begin a series tonight with the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are 39 and 38. The Arizona Diamondbacks have just recently played the Blue Jays. They played the Blue Jays before the White Sox played the Blue Jays. That was a Tuesday to Thursday series. Thomas and I will break that down for you when we can. But first, before we get down to giving you the probables for the Blue Jays Guardians series. Before we get down to that, here is a look at our standings, and I'll go ahead and share my screen here to give you a look at the current standings, where they stand right now. Currently, you got the Blue Jays a game behind, 2 games behind, I should say, the New York, not the New York Yankees, the New York Yankees. They are about 4 games back of the Yankees. The Rays are 2 games up on the Blue Jays. 3 games up in the wild card are the Rays. They are 2.5 back of the Yankees. The Yankees' record is 45-32. Rays are 43-35. The Blue Jays are 41-36. The Red Sox 40-39. The Orioles 33-44. Over in the White Sox division, the White Sox are 25-53, but they are games back of their division leading Tigers, who are 49-30. The Cleveland Guardians, who the Blue Jays will see starting on Tuesday, are 39-37. The Kansas City Royals are 38-40. They are 1 win away to tie the Cleveland Guardians for second place in the AL Central. And in the last part there, just behind Kansas City and above the Chicago White Sox, the Minnesota Twins are 37-40, 2.5 games back of the division leading Red Sox. I should say not Red Sox, the Tigers. Well, actually, no, that's 2 games back of the wild card, I should say. They are 11 games back of the Tigers. The Royals are 2 games back of the wild card. They are 10.5 back of their division leading Tigers. 8.5 for the Guardians, who have a shot at the wild card as we speak. And that is all we will do for now for this version of our show as we stop the share here. So the record, once again, kind of a bit in trouble the Blue Jays are, so they're going to need a big road trip filled with wins when they battle Boston later this weekend and they battle Cleveland this week on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the Red Sox will be hosting the Blue Jays from Fenway Park. And of course, after that, the Yankees are in town, then the Angels coming into town. And speaking of that, let's talk about the starters in those showdowns for Blue Jays Guardians. That's what we're going to focus on now. So let's go over to Tuesday, which is tomorrow. And you might be hearing the show by this time. The Blue Jays will be sending to the mound Eric Lauer. He will go against Logan Allen in Game 1. First pitch set for 6:40 p.m. Eastern, 5:40 p.m. Central, 3:40 p.m. Pacific. Wednesday, the Blue Jays will be sending Max Scherzer to the mound. He will get this man, Gavin Williams. He is the projected starter for Wednesday, but a lot can change. Max Scherzer is confirmed. However, he will return to the Blue Jays after trying to get his thumb issue under control. So he will return to the Blue Jays on Wednesday, June the 25th, 2025, and start against Gavin Williams if that remains the same. The Blue Jays will fire things up with Kevin Gausman getting the start on the getaway day on Thursday, June the 26th, as he will take on Tanner Biebe, who will get the start Thursday. Those are the probables for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I particularly am looking forward to seeing what Max Scherzer can do in Cleveland on Wednesday. Game time for Wednesday is at, well, we seem to be experiencing some technical issues. We'll be right back. 1 second. As I had mentioned, we were running things there. As I was saying, Max Scherzer will return to the lineup, to the rotation, I should say, at Wednesday's game. Game time, same as Tuesday night's game at 6:40 p.m. Eastern, 5:40 p.m. Central, 3:40 p.m. Pacific. And game number 3, that's the Kevin Gausman game, as the probables stand. That will be a 1:10 p.m. Eastern, 12:10 p.m. Central, 9 a.m. Pacific, 9:10 a.m. Pacific game. I will double check that to make sure, but 1:10 p.m. Eastern is that game. And with that, that'll do it for this episode of Blue Jays Game Recap. Thank you so much for joining us. The Blue Jays will face the Guardians this week, face the Red Sox this weekend, back at home on June 30th for a Canada Day extravaganza 4-game series with the New York Yankees. That follows up with City Connect Fridays, a 3-game series with the Angels. And then right after that, it's back to the White Sox we go in Chicago. Then we go to the Athletics for the weekend, and then the All-Star break kicks into high gear. Meanwhile, for the White Sox, they will start a series with the Diamondbacks tonight at 7:40 p.m. Eastern Time, 6:40 p.m. Central. That continues into Wednesday. Then the Giants will be in town Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They will hit the road on July 1st to take on the Dodgers and then the Rockies. Then they will host the Blue Jays, and then the Guardians are here for 4 games. Following the Guardians' 4-game series, the White Sox will hit the road for the All-Star game, including the T-Mobile Home Run Derby on July the 14th at 7 p.m. Central Time, 1:05 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And with that said, my name is Scott McGregor. That'll do it for our White Sox Blue Jays coverage. We'll be back with a turn back the clock for the Diamondbacks and the Blue Jays. We will turn back the clock to those series coming up on episode 17 of season 4 of Sports for Beginners. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Scott McGregor, saying thank you so much for being with us. Hope you enjoyed the show. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. And always remember, Blue Jays fans, lights up, let's go. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for joining us on Sports for Beginners, the podcast, for Blue Jays Game Recap, the after show on Sports for Beginners, the podcast, right after every Blue Jays game. To learn more about upcoming episodes, when they drop, and schedule, please visit https://sportsforbeginners0.wordpress.com. Follow the show on Facebook at facebook.com/sportsforbeginners87. Send us an email at sportsforbeginners87@gmail.com. Follow Ali, Thomas, and Scott on Twitter at Scott McGregor3, Thomas J, and ALI Musa. Follow Thomas and Scott on Instagram at SMC_87_ and TM_80 and TM00_. Thanks for listening to Blue Jays Baseball, and we hope to see you soon again. This has been Blue Jays Game Recap. Once again, the website is https://sportsforbeginners0.wordpress.com. Thanks for listening. And when it's time for the Blue Jays to play ball, there's only one chant Blue Jays fans will be using. Catch you later, baseball fans.